for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen, the Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Alrighty.
We have launched.
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Planet Green Trees, episode number 541. We're calling it Quickness. Is this what we're calling it? Am I looking at the right one?
Quickness of the eye.
Is that what it is?
Deceives the mind.
All right, okay, good. All right. And Quickness, and as Amanda announced there, and today's date, of course, is December the 2nd, 2021. And thank you for joining us. We should be live on various platforms. And we've got a great show planned for tonight. Let me tease the topics, then we can introduce our community entertainment people. There may be a rant of some kind. We're going to talk, we're really going to talk a lot about the testing, which seems to be an ongoing thing. But in addition to that, we're going to be talking about Senate Bill number 631. Try to dissect that a little bit. Assistant prosecutor allegedly arrested for drunk driving and possession of a weapon. We got another marijuana testing company, the testing company's lawsuit, which permeates right now. And of course, Michigan case of excessive growing or an overgrow results in felony charges by an individual by the name of Delucenay, I believe his name is, but I may be mispronouncing it. Anyways, this, of course, is Planet Green Trees, Michigan's #1 show about cannabis legal issues, licensing, regulation, compliance, medical marijuana topics, current events, and other legal matters. We're going to be talking about all of that. And before we get into it, let's introduce everybody who is here tonight to help entertain. We have the Bunker Boys, which include Tommy, Justin, and Dangerous Dan.
Dangerous
Thanks for being
Dan.
tonight.
We've been told his name is now Fancy Dan.
Oh, yeah, Fancy Dan.
All right, okay. And
He's evolving.
immediately in a clockwise rotation, depending on which way you're standing, Jim Powers is here. Jim Powers.
Jimmy the Pepper.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here after a break for the Thanksgiving holiday. Hope
Yeah.
everybody's holidays were fun and safe and all of that. Glad to be here and looking forward to the show.
If I'm not mistaken, both Jimmy and our next in studio guest, Amanda, flew from another state to be here today for this
Yes,
show.
we did.
We
And
We
only,
flew out to get blue out.
That's right. Flown all the way for just this good, Jim. I want to
That's
thank you. I know you had a later flight and changed it, and your entire family.
Look at this.
Right.
Yeah, I even
Oh, that's awesome.
Represent.
I went home, got changed.
Wow, you even I
And then
didn't
the family
have
said,
time. I
no.
just didn't. I right from the airport. Here I am,
No.
just fresh off the plane.
Look at you.
Yeah.
I can't
Looking
believe
all
I
tore
didn't
up
see
from
you
the
at the
floor up.
airport.
My hair's like all staticky and stuff, and
That's from being up at 30,000 feet.
travel torn.
Yeah.
Travel torn.
Yeah.
Well,
But
Amanda,
here we are.
and usually a Komorn Law T-shirt makes all that go away. I sometimes
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
It does.
But welcome back to the cold Northwest,
To
Amanda.
the mitten.
The
Thank
mitten. And thanks for joining us tonight.
I came from the sock. To the mitten.
Okay, is that what they call it?
Well, that's what I'm calling it.
All right.
Kind of looks like a sock.
It does. I mean, you got socks, mittens. It makes sense because, your socks are typically low.
All right.
So, you got your boot, your sock.
Yeah. The sock,
Then up here, you got your mitten.
the foot.
Yeah, the foot.
Like
Hopefully
a
it's
boot,
not
like the
stinky.
boot, like Italy, the boot, right? It's got a little bit of that like sticking out into the.
Yeah.
All right,
It's got
all
a
right.
shoehorn of sorts.
That's right. That's right. You'll explain to us a lot about some of the Florida culture of what's taking place. Maybe we'll have a special
Yeah.
topic on that.
Yeah, there's
That'd be interesting.
a lot of stuff going on.
And of course, to Amanda's right, we have the nighttime tea, dessert tea
Hell yeah.
specialist. That's what he's going by.
Brewing right now.
Brewing right
Heck
now.
yeah.
Percolating.
Steeping.
They're steeping as we speak. Jamie is jealous that he's not here this week having another dessert tea.
Yeah.
I have like 3 of those.
He did too.
He was threatening to be here tonight. It's fine. We're going to get. But
We
Steve,
can barely hear Jamie.
Steve,
Yeah, Jamie. We got to hear you. You're a
Is
little
there
low.
I hear a humming. Do you guys hear a humming a little bit?
Can you hear me?
It's a little hum.
Very, very low. Justin, why is Jamie so low?
Can you hear me better?
No. I think we
Check,
need,
check.
same.
1,
we'll,
2.
we'll deal with that at the break, I guess.
Steve Miller, thank you for being here tonight. All
Yes,
things
sir.
Komorn Law. Rover. On the Zoom room, we have
Danielle.
Danielle from Ohio. She's a returning guest, and I understand is a fan of Planet Green Trees. May even watch the podcast sometimes. I'm just speculating a little bit. But Danielle, thank you so much for being here. I know patient advocate and educator and
Lady Jane Wellness and part of Midwest Canon Concierge.
that's right. That's right. Straight out of Ohio. Please welcome Danielle.
Thanks for
being
having
here.
me, guys.
Thanks
Thanks for being there.
being on.
Being here. And you can maybe enlighten us a little bit on how the testing in Ohio is taking place, but we'll return to that topic. But we also have Jamie Lowell, as I said, he's threatening to be here tonight for back-to-back or alternate weeks, but we're glad to have him anytime we can get him. He is, of course, the one responsible for everything. Thanks for being here,
Yes.
Jamie Lowell. Jamie Lowell.
He gave us a thumbs up.
Okay, all right. He's not talking.
Just
Now we can hear
Now
him.
we can hear
There
you.
we go.
Okay, all right. Just some positive vibes, or however you express these types of things, toward all the people associated with the tragic shooting that took place at the Oxford High School recently. I we have some good friends who have kids in that high school, and one of the young people who died was one of their really good friends. And
Oh,
Yeah.
I just watched a news report with Rob Maloney on Channel 4, and they were on there talking about it. So just on my mind.
Which parent was it? I know there's 4 kids, various ages. One was a senior, like they want to name the football field after
Her
him.
name
now.
was-
It was a
Her
woman.
name was
Okay.
her name was something like Henna St. Julian or
Yeah.
something like
She's a
that.
volleyball volleyball
Juliana.
player.
Yes, yeah, volleyball player. Yeah. And then our good friends are the Curtises, and they were the ones who were interviewed, and they were like her second family, and they hung out there all the time, went camping with them and all that kind of stuff.
It's
I
terrible.
can't even imagine what the parents are going through. I mean,
I can't either.
I know that, like all things, the impact of this is different for everybody. I mean, it's a tragedy outright, but if you don't have kids in a school district, but you still don't want it in your community, of course. But I think just, today, for example, there was, they shut down all the schools in Oakland County. I know Steve's got a child in high school, Livingston. They warned, but they still let people show up, And just to talk about this for a second, I was describing this to my wife. This is they have a fundamental crisis in the institution of public education. I mean, it is a crisis that they know is like there's a turning point here now that it's in our backyard. The decisions of those that are in charge are going, whatever that process is with parent input, and there's already a lot of fighting and arguing amongst these issues right now about back to school, masks, vaccinations and whatnot. So you're just going to throw into now the gun debate. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like enough to, because that's what's going to be happening. I think like the institution is going to be discussing, do we want guns in school? Are we going to arm the teachers? Are we going to have metal detectors? Should we arm the kids? Maybe they have the best bets to arm the kids. Give them guns. If they see someone coming to shoot them, they can shoot first or something. I don't know. I'm saying that sarcastically, but I think that there's this, we're in a crisis in terms of the institution of public schools. Like, I think that this is a watershed moment in that the discussion and only discussion is what are we going to do moving forward? Some of the answers may be nothing. Maybe, we have enough security and that's how it's going to be. And I don't know that there is an answer. I don't even know if there is something you can do, because if you think about it.
There is an answer.
Hold on, let me propose this proposition. There may not be an answer, theoretically, because there was someone at this school, Oxford, that was armed. They have someone on site, and they were there in 5 minutes. I don't know if they can get any, the response time, everyone did their.
But that's not the answer. I mean, that's only part of the answer. The building, it's not a secure building. If you want to secure the building, And that includes things like putting metal detectors at doors or some other mechanism to be able to detect when someone is bringing a weapon into the school. And the argument is always that they don't want it to be like a prison or a jail.
Would they rather have a shooting range?
That's exactly it. And unfortunately, that's the decision people have to make.
You know, it's interesting. I realize this. Think of the places in which jurisdictions have metal detectors in their public schools. Do any come to mind?
Yeah, well, I believe there's some in the inner cities, aren't there?
Okay, you know what you don't hear ever?
What?
School shootings in inner city urban areas.
It is true.
I'm just saying, like there may be other, whatever the gun issues are. It's not in the school, right, Steve? We were talking about that today.
They seem to be ahead of the curve on the situation.
But it goes back to the issue. I think parents, I mean, look, it's a cold hard truth. We're in an era where
it sucks. It sucks. But you know what? Like Amanda said, it's better than having a dead child. And a metal detector is a very effective deterrent.
It's at the entrances. And I saw a TikTok, okay? This lady posed as her teenage daughter. Everybody wears masks, right? So how is somebody supposed to know? So she passed several teachers and all this, the principal even said hello to her. The teacher complimented her backpack. So, taking that into consideration, there has to be a little better security, because if some grown person can get into that school, I mean, we see these folks that, the kids are the ones that are shooting it up, but it doesn't mean that there's adults that can't go in there and do the same thing. There's got to be something done. I hear a lot of talk about gun, what do you call it, regulation or stricter laws and stuff like that. I'm not sure that the people that are getting the guns really give a care about what law there is, because they're shooting people. So, just because they're not possessing the gun legally, I don't really think that implementing stronger gun laws are going to change what's going on, because I don't know how many of those people that are shooting have a registered gun in the first place.
I'm with Jim on the security. And I don't mean you have to load up every school with a million security guards or something like that, but just you got to control your entries and exits. And every time I go to a school, like my Terminator mask comes on, and I start identifying all the security deficiencies in schools, and there's usually a lot of them because, they're pretty lax there, and doors get left open, and
people can come in and out.
And some of them try. They make attempts at security and controlling their entries and exits, but there's just a lot of deficiencies in these schools, and it's going to take probably a lot of education in that area, these schools in the suburbs, and metal detectors.
You think we could use some of the recreational tax money that we generate to push back into these public programs, or is that not the place that it's supposed to go? Are we not supposed to use it for schools and improvements, or are we supposed to use it just strictly for educational purposes? Jamie. He didn't even listen.
Kind of thinking you rephrased the question.
That means he didn't listen. The question was, of all those tax dollars that are being collected by the state of Michigan for recreational sales, would there possibly be an allotment that is available for public education, security, any types of things like that, in addition to the educational programs they're supposed to be putting out in regards to cannabis? So I guess the question is, how much of those funds are being allocated?
Sure. Well, some of this excise tax goes to education directly. So there's more money coming in because of these sales directly. And then the locals get a cut, and they can choose to do whatever they whatever they want to do with it. If they
So-
feel this is a need, then they can apply it toward that.
Yeah, so maybe each of these little townships and areas may need to get a little active in this regard and demand that the money be spent where it needs to be. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Here's something that
I think there's an argument for that. If it's not happening already, I think Michigan has an argument now for it.
Yeah.
Or will have a desire for it now.
but what would it be? I mean, Jim would obviously instill.
I would secure the building.
That's good.
Just like Steve said, control the entrances and exits.
That's true. That's true.
That's
Here's an interesting statistic because I think I'm okay. That's the immediate solution, right? The premise that Jim has is that there will be school shootings. There's nothing you can do about it, right?
But the premise is that
I got it.
We all know there's a root cause here in most of these cases, and it's rooted in mental illness. And
Okay.
we all know that.
Okay.
But that is a bigger nut that we are not going to
I
crack. We
understand.
can secure these buildings like
will
now.
crack it.
I agree, and I was just creating a little conversation here, and I agree that there is a bigger nut to crack. I don't know that it's capable of crack, especially with the resources and where ours are spent relative to the need for mental health and addressing it in a more responsible way. But nevertheless, I was talking with another lawyer who proposed the idea that school shootings have been around for longer than you would realize. There's, of course, some moments in the history of these events that we can all recognize, like the Columbine in Colorado was the first one. And what year is that? 2006, 7, something like that? Maybe earlier. I don't know. We'll look back on that. But
1999.
99. Okay.
Wow, look at you with those factoids.
I actually did in my master's program. I focused on school shootings.
Okay. All right. So this,
School shootings.
you're the perfect person to talk to them because this is what I understand. And I know they categorize them as non-active shooter and active shooter, generally speaking, for school shootings. But if you go back to 1970 to 80, it was about the same across the board in most cities and townships. I think it's a little increase in the 90s, but it remains pretty consistent over the years. There's some upticks and whatnot, and it was reduced. I'm looking at a stat here from I don't know what this report is from, but it's from 1970 to September of 2021, reduced in 2010, 12, and then starts to go up in 14 again, vacillating back and forth, and then in 2018, bam, it's up to like 125, year after year, and then this year we're already 20 was like up to 175, something to that effect. Now, the point that the person was trying to make, and I think is somewhat consistent here, is that they've been around for a long time. They've been happening before you even knew about Columbine. There's always a scenario where some kid at school is getting beat up and they get their parents' gun and comes to school and shoots one particular individual that they're aiming for, right? The distinction is that the same number of times that it happens, it's just that the carnage of the event has become greater because of the weapons, and the indiscriminateness of who's getting killed has also changed as a fact, a significant factor. What do you say about that, Danielle? Is there anything true to that?
I don't know. I don't have the stats or the ability to for sure back that up. I could see where the trend would lean that way. I think a lot of it has to do with media coverage. If they go into a school and they shoot one person, their name's that's not a story.
Right.
That's a tragedy
True.
regardless, but that's not a story. And I think the attention that a lot of these shooters are getting and their name in the papers and all over the news, and I think it's gotten a lot better. I remember when I was going through school and going through my program, there was a petition going around to ask the media not to shine so much attention on the person themselves who commit the act and instead shine light on the aftermath and what might have led up, but not giving the attention to that person because that's just grandiosing the idea for these other individuals who might have that underlying inkling. Another point I want to touch on, you guys brought up, you don't see these happening in inner city schools, you see it outside of the school, but a lot of that is because the aggression is taking place outside. Their battle is gang wars, is drive-by shootings.
Walking home from school.
Their fear in some cases, schools, they're safe haven. That's their neutral territory.
Well,
And
that was the point. Is that there may be greater violence there, per capita, but you never hear about it in the school, and it's just an interesting phenomena. Substantiating the argument that you secure the building from weapons and you're not going to have any problems. You know what I mean? It's terrible.
For sure, and it is. But I think that a lot of people in these rural communities don't think that that's they don't think it's going to happen to them, or that there's enough of a student, there's not enough of a student population that are having access to these guns, or a big enough threat to justify the funds that would need to go into putting the security at the building, the fear that this would instill in their children to go to school, because it does. It's a whole psychological thing. A lot of them at this point, they're to the point they're just going to pull them out and do virtual learning. They're not,
I'll tell you,
if they're thinking that big about it. Absolutely. At this point, I would too. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
But that's where it's become, because it's very scary. But if you look just from last year to this year, there were 10 school shootings last year. This is like the 28th or 29th this year, and the 20th since August.
Well, listen,
when they went,
you're right,
back.
Because I'm looking at the chain of events here. So 2017, they're reporting about 65, which is the most, equal to the most since 1970. Okay, you see what I'm saying, per year. And then in 2018, it's at 18, 19, and 20. It's at approximately 130, and then 2020 they were at 160, 170 already. So there's a huge leap, almost doubling from 2017 to 2018, and then it's been consistent here. Now, when you talk about some of the things that the lockdown and the impact it may have had, I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know if there's a causation. I could certainly make a weak, scientific argument that there's a, correlation, it would appear, but I can't. I don't know what the explanation is. Do we dare to speculate on this? What in your studies, Danielle? What was did you get into cause roots of these kind of things? I mean, there is the copycat influence that you're describing, where the person may be depressed and it's like a heroic go out and blaze of glory kind of thing. I think that's kind of maybe romanticized if you're in that kind of state of mind. It may be appealing, but. What is it? What accounts for this? Do you have an answer?
I don't. There's not one blanket answer. Just those things you listed off right there. The whole grandiosing the idea. There's wanting to, if they feel they've not made a name for themselves, or if they're to the point of committing these crimes, they don't expect to make it out of that. And this is their way to leave a mark. This is their way to make their life mean something. There's a lot of focus but a lot of focus that needs to go into teachers being able to recognize, and not only being able to recognize the signs of students who are being neglected or bullied or whatever, but to not have such a workload that they're feeling like they can't pay that kind of attention to students that are coming in and out of their classroom and what's going on. A lot of teachers make the argument that they have so much on their plate and this is a job.
I totally agree with that, because you just see, the teachers' rates of pay and things like that, and now the additional responsibilities and the health risks and all that other stuff that go into it. It's really, it's a lot, and they're humans too. They have lives outside of school, and I'm sure it weighs on them. I can't imagine that I'm not saying that they don't want to be able to pay this kind of attention to their students, but it's easier when those warning signs are more prevalent in their mind. They're watching for them just in their day-to-day. There are signs, there are things that you can look back at. If you go back, like the shooter that went through the Cedar in Colorado, if looking back at his journals through his therapy sessions, there were warning signs. Even this gentleman or this kid from yesterday or the day before that did this, the 15-year-old Crumley, I think his name was. But either way, he had been talked to by the school the day before and the day of the incident.
Right.
And his parents.
And his parents. So,
And the
like,
police
there were
did say they
things
didn't
on his
know about
social
it, and
media.
absolutely. There were students who straight up didn't go to school and who told their parents they're not going to school. They don't feel comfortable. Something's going to happen.
The text, I got that, saw that too, and it appears that there was an agreement amongst a group of kids. They were going to shoot up schools on Monday, but the guy was sick or didn't do it. Tuesday was crumbly. Wednesday was going to be another day. And when they heard of it, that's why they closed down the schools, I guess, Thursday, right? Today was the
As a
first day, right?
preventative measure. 'cause
Was this
they're-
all in Michigan?
Yeah.
Like, and they had some
This is-
text messages before, in between them.
This is that Oxford high school shooting that just
but
happened.
other schools in the area
Right.
the
But
same.
I was going to say this. He's saying that this was set up to do like one each day this week.
Yeah. I'll just tell you what the thread. I mean, I don't know. It was passed
That's
around.
terrible.
Amongst
Yeah,
the,
so it's these kids, but I don't know. Some of them.
But
may
I
just
do
be
also want to
saying it.
point out, well, and this is also kind of a terrifying revelation through this trend. Kids are to the point that, I mean, I've seen TikTok videos of students being escorted out of buildings from after active, like showing their classmates' blood on the floor and walking out of this building and explaining what happened. And that's how desensitized it. I don't want to say that. Obviously, they understand it's tragic, but they just put it on social media like it's nothing. And I think that's another part of it. It's just all about the grandness. I mean, everything is exaggerated online for everybody now. And I think that it's just become another
part of our new normal.
Let's pretend.
Yeah, and I mean, like the feeling everywhere is just heightened. Everything is just so heavy these days, and kids feel it.
Do you think that, does anybody think that, like, with the activities over the last couple of, specifically the protests and demonstrations and things like that, and some of the people that were looting, but, back in the summertime, kind of, like, scrambled some people upstairs? Do you think all that pandemic stuff might have affected everybody's?
I was going to ask this. So I was going to say, let's all pretend we're doctors and come up with a theory of what's causing this. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I'm just curious if everyone's got an idea. Like, let's all pretend we're like, oh, this is what's wrong with the world, and this is what these damn kids.
These gosh darn kids.
You know that the dad drove to the school, and their parents did, and they heard about it, made sure that the kid didn't say anything to the police, and got a lawyer.
Yeah,
I don't. That's not a bad. Listen.
No, I don't think he should have talked either.
I am not saying it's a bad thing.
Question.
This is part of the story, and I'm not saying it's a stupid thing. It's a weird kind of a part of the story.
Well, first of all,
it's the smartest thing he could have done.
It's a smart thing. I think that there's a part of the story that the kid had possession of the gun days before and posted ownership of it. That's a parental problem.
And the gun was just purchased, and the dad's into guns, stuff like that. All of those things, including the weirdness of. I mean, it's.
Listen, the kid.
It's different than it was a smart move. It's weird and it's unusual that happens like that. And then part of the story is all the guns that were around him and all that kind of stuff too. So.
Listen, I would say this to you, despite as probably unpopular as it would be, if you are a parent and your kid is in custody, I don't care what the circumstances. You may have had something to do with it. You may not have. You tell them not to talk, and you tell them that before they get into custody, no matter what. Okay, and no one should be. Now the weird stuff is if the kid had the gun 2 days before and said, "Look, I got my new baby," which I think is what they were suggesting. That's problematic. The parents should have seen that and stopped that.
They might get charged too. I know. I understand.
I know. And Jamie, I'm not knocking it. I think who knows? You never know.
It's just a safe way to go about it. Of course, they know what he did.
Separate than the issue of the fact that it went down as it did, and it's part of the bigger story of him having the guns around and stuff like that, from my perspective. So,
all right,
behavior all the way around. The beginning of some influences onto this kid from some of that.
So go on, Jamie. With that being said, and you think the parents were potentially involved in some way or encouraged it? Is that what you suggest? You think that or are you saying that?
I'm
it was
saying,
a lifestyle.
It definitely appears to be influential. I don't know about involved or encouraged necessarily.
So what do we know about those guys, those parents? Nothing much, other than they like some guns and they told him not to talk. Is that like? Do we know anything more about them?
I heard he had a diary that's like, I'm going to kill everybody diary, and
okay,
he had a lot. People knew about it, and he'd been talking about it, and he loved guns, and
okay.
The day before, and that day he was at the school, which means he either had the gun and brought it there, and it was in the school when he was meeting with his parents and the teacher. Parents went home. He had the gun, went to class, went into the bathroom, came out with the gun, and
Yep.
And as they described it during the bond hearing, it's one of the most horrific things you've ever seen. Indiscriminately firing at people, killing four. It's insane. I don't know what else to say. I just recently, there's a, I don't know that this is, this is that scenario, but I think there's some explanation about some of the, I don't know, the shootings. Jim, what do you know about these incels? Have you heard of these incels?
Like incelibates?
Involuntary celibates.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyone heard of this
That's
before?
terrible.
I have.
So there's a world out there that people live on these websites, and they've concluded that they've thrown in the towel. It's a process. You get sucked in, but you can imagine the world we're living in. I don't have any places to go. You don't have these opportunities for social interaction to be a non-involuntary celibate. And it creates I mean, this is a real thing. Amanda, you're laughing. You're laughing. There's like a cult of this. I'm telling you. And I think a lot of they're like, people are
they just can't get any.
No, they just can't get.
And
laid.
they've given up, and they hate women. You don't understand? They hate women.
Really hate.
It's insane.
yeah.
Seriously, there's this. If this is real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jamie, you ever heard of this before?
The guys that can't get any, and they're all pissed off about it.
Involuntary celibates.
Yes, I said just get married.
That's right.
That's funny.
Oh. Yeah, that was probably a good one.
But that has different rules and regulations as opposed to the more organic involuntary.
You just gotta wait for your birthday. Birthday, anniversary, you're guaranteed 2 times a year. Woo!
What about Christmas?
Heck no. Too tired.
No.
Too tired.
No.
You gotta cook and stuff.
The legal definition is an incel is a member of an online subculture of people who define themselves as unable to get a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one.
Oh my goodness. That's a shame. That is a damn shame.
You should see some of these people.
There is someone for everyone.
There
you
is.
know? They just have to step outside their box.
Isn't that what dating apps are for?
Yeah, there's all kinds of those now.
I don't think that's
Some of
the
them
problem.
are even free.
I don't think that's the problem.
They're just bitter at this point, or
Yeah.
what is it that makes these folks so undesirable?
Because they're not getting laid. So they just, everything goes to shit for them.
It's a vicious
I can
cycle.
imagine. I could see how that would happen.
So, I mean, some people can deal with it, I guess. These people can't.
Maybe they just never. Maybe they never
They're
had
pretty
it,
mad.
so they don't know
Maybe.
what they're missing.
Maybe that could be.
All right, here we go. Here's a story from Bizarre Magazine from 2018. Before Alec Minassian used a van to kill 10 and injure 15 people this week, he left a message on Facebook. It exclaimed, "The incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys." These are the other names.
Excuse me.
You've heard this, like they've identified certain people that are Chads who they can't compete with, and the Stacys who go for the Chads. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Roger. Incels, okay. So
Stacy and Chad.
Stacy and Chad. The Chad.
it's a cult, I think, is what they.
I've never heard about Stacy and Chad. That's
No,
good.
I've heard like Becky is another phrase that's
I know
used
Karen.
for Karen. Yes, but Becky is also just like and Tiffany. They'll call
Little Tiff.
I mean,
little white
if all these
girls.
incels are dreaming of these horrific of tragedy or committing all these crazy crimes, like, of course they're not finding
Yeah, that's true.
A woman.
It might be hard to find a girl, a good woman,
that's
if you're
what
totally
you're
violent
interested in.
and have a bunch of AKs hanging on your wall or something.
She's going to be terrified of you. She's not going to want to
First of
talk
all,
to you.
there's no way that this could be a thing you would think, right? Like, how could this ever be unless it's like the internet? I mean, you're like, only if the people are so, you know, in such.
Totally.
It takes all kinds, Michael.
But
It takes all
I'm
kinds.
just saying, can you imagine?
Doesn't the internet
First
make
off-
getting laid easier than ever?
But
The
my point is,
600-pound man
anybody-
has a wife.
if there is not the internet, think about how far someone would have to travel to
Yeah.
find another person to talk about this. To, you know what I mean? But it's
Tell
like,
you what, choices used to be limited. Back before computers or before internet and all that jazz, you really, if you liked somebody, you had to figure out where the hell they were
Yeah.
and go and hope you run into them.
Yeah.
And you really didn't get too much outside of your own town.
that's true. People used to marry their people in their own neighborhood.
Yes.
You know, there was a
Thank
car,
goodness I got out of my
right?
little
But there
town.
was, you know.
I think about that all the time, actually.
All right, has this gotten too off topic here?
yeah,
No, I don't know.
I don't think we're talking
The school
about
shooting thing
cannabis
is a
anymore.
topic. We're going to talk about it. I don't know. You know,
It was Jamie's fault.
Jim, do all the schools in Macomb County have metal detectors?
Nope, they don't.
Do you have them at the elementary school level?
If you
Of course you
secure
do.
the building, like there's really very little good reason. And you look at a lot of these buildings, and I'm sure Steve will echo this. They're not even laid out securely. Like there is no reason that there should be a path for a visitor to get into a school facility without having to go through the office. Like physically,
No.
it needs.
Listen, at the school that my kids go to, they have a locked door. Once the school starts, you cannot get into the building
Oh, good.
or out of the building. So if I got to bring, if someone leaves something at home and I got to bring it up there, I got to ring the doorbell. They got to see me.
Oh,
They see me on a
good.
camera. They let me in. I got to go to the office. And I can't go straight to the room. I mean, that's I don't know.
But
if
you
that's
got to
some-
go to the office. That's the point. Like there's no good reason.
They
for
let
that.
me in. I'm on camera.
Yeah.
I don't know if they,
Yeah, you're on camera.
So they're either going to let me in or they're not going to let me in.
It's the idea of a man trap, or the whole idea is that you have to be.
Are you
have to-
accepting this protocol that I'm saying is?
I'm saying that protocol is a good way to get somebody into the building and not know what they're doing or where they're at.
Well, no, because they would not. I could say that I'm here to drop something off for my daughter.
Okay.
And they'll say, "What's her name?"
Oh.
And they'll, what room is she in? Mm-hmm. All right. We'll come out and get it, maybe, or something like that.
Well, or are they going to buzz you in?
or they may buzz me in.
So they
but-
buzzed you in.
But oftentimes, there's got to be some contact first before you just walk up.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
there's no
That's all right.
authentication there.
Okay, all right.
It could be any student in any grade, and they're just going to buzz you in. I mean that's what I'm talking about when I say you need to secure the building. These buildings are not secured at all.
Well, how difficult would it be if you have just to reduce the amount of entrances to one or two? I mean, if there's several
Right,
entrances for a big
exactly.
school, you can eliminate the ones that you don't want to deal with right now.
Or you camp out the gun with the cop with the gun in that place, and he's in charge
give
of
him a taser.
letting people in and letting people out
Right.
who are dropping stuff off. That's securing the building, right? And when the parents come in, they got a metal detector they probably got to go through.
Right.
That's not but the they would have to do that anyways, right? Like what difference is it if you have a metal detector and you can secure everyone unless the people that are entering after that are.
Everybody that enters should be screened. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. But another thing is if they don't want to invest in those big stand-alone metal detectors, they can also get the wands. The wands are, I don't know how good they are, but Steve might be able to speak to that. But there are options. There are options to.
I find it insane that would be a problem. Like how much could those things be? You know what I
Not
mean?
very much.
well, the wands just take too long.
Forget
That's
the one. I'm
problem.
saying the metal detector.
How
they're
much could it be?
It always depends on the.
$1,000, $1,500 maybe.
Yeah, and it always depends on the calibration too. I mean, how many times you walk through one place, walk through another place, you don't buzz.
True.
Too close to the sides. Lift your shoes up. What do you got? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I got a metal in my knee or whatever. That kind of.
I mean, based on this incident, they better have an X-ray checking bags coming through too.
You know, it's a shame that we're here
Right?
talking about this in such a way, but I think at this point it's kind of a reality that we have to talk about it, and we have to really think about these things in a different way now.
Every backpack should go through a whatchamacallit? God.
Like at the airport, a screener. Doop doop doop.
I the way the American legal system treats the schools, public schools, is interesting and unique in that there are no constitutional rights for students. They don't have any,
No.
privacy rights, and I think that legally they could probably force and compel all of that, right?
I think so.
But I mean, at some level, we want that, right? You have to give the school a certain amount of latitude in order for them to be able to operate effectively.
The problem is also, what the problem is, what goes with it, you now have more policing on site, right? See, we talked about this. The more police on site, some of them are there just to secure the building as is, right? But if you have a bunch of them there and you give them the authority to, create safety and ensure safety and be security, then they start looking for stuff. Now they've got the hammer looking for a nail to snap, and now they're investigating kids, and it becomes more of a
That's the problem with the police and security culture in this nation, as we were discussing earlier, is that they like to go screw with somebody who's sitting there minding their own business, reading the paper. And I had an incident down at the federal court last week where it's a prime example. I'm sitting there reading the news, minding my own business, waiting for Michael to get out of speaking with the client. And this security guard comes out of nowhere. What are you doing? How come you got that phone in your hand? Are you an attorney?
Wow.
I mean, just boom. Where did you get that newspaper? I mean, it was ridiculous. And that sums up the problem in this thing. I mean, and that's how we were trained as police officers, is you go around and you find something. You see somebody walking down the street, you stop them, you screw with them, you shake them down.
Right.
That's what you do. That's what we're here for. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing your job. And you're not shit as a police officer, blah, blah, blah. So that's the game of security and policing in this country, is to go find things. And it's usually petty little bullshit that they're finding and creating major incidents out of and assaulting people. And we need to rethink this security and protection plan and the thing. Do we want them there securing and protecting, or do we want them running around doing a little busy work writing tickets for smoking cigarettes in the school?
But if you secure the entrances and the exits, most of that other stuff goes away.
Right.
So then they don't have to worry about that.
I'm with you on that, Jim.
But they're gonna, they want to still go find what are these kids doing.
Right.
What can we do to screw with this kid who's sitting in the hallway by himself reading his book? Let's go screw with him. See what? That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's all police and security, but it's a lot of them. Let's focus on the real. What is really needed? We don't want them doing busy work. We want them alert and looking for something major coming this way, I think.
Right.
Is there anybody who disagrees with me on that?
No, but I will say that I had an interesting discussion with somebody regarding the concept of a security guard or officer in the school, and what the discussion revolved around was the issue that they had in Florida with that school in Broward County, and the fact that they had an armed guard there. I believe he was a police officer.
Shot somebody.
No, he
shot a kid or something.
No. There was
the one who fled the building.
Oh,
he ran away. Yeah, he ran away.
Well,
that's not who
I don't
you
know.
want there.
I really don't even know what to say about that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, He might have had
This
like.
is the one that where people think that the kids were actors or something like that.
Yeah, that's the one. It's
like Eric Gunnels thinks that they're actors or something.
It's yeah. I
by the way,
that
he got hammered in a libel lawsuit. What's his
Really?
face? Yeah, in Florida. Where was it? No, it was in. What were we talking about? What's his face from Infowars?
Oh yeah, Alex Jones. He got it was Sandy Hook.
Sandy Hook, right? So they sued him and he lost.
Yeah.
He should. It's despicable.
I never did. agree
How
with him.
disrespectful. I mean,
Yeah, he's ridiculous.
So this incels are a real problem. Like they're, it started as an online support group, and they've turned into
Vigilante squad.
yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know if that's it, but so, all right. So should we stop talking and talk about the lab now? Should we just move on? Because it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, what's going on with the lab?
All right. So, I mean, Jim, you want to give an update on what we know? I mean, there's been the evidentiary hearings. We can talk about that a little bit and everyone's impression from those things that walk. But of course, we're talking about. Well, let me just. I got this article. Marijuana Safety Labs now suing the regulatory agency over recall that impacted nearly $230 million worth and 64,000 pounds of marijuana product, mostly flour. And this was a recall from the MRA specifically for Verity's lab. And it's one of its subsidiaries in a couple of jurisdictions. And the total amount is over a 3-month period of time, all the cannabis that they had tested. So like all good cartoon characters, after being accused of this, they went on the offensive and sued the MRA to enjoin them from enforcing their particular recall and sanctions that were forthcoming. And when I say that this laboratory sued the state of Michigan, they did in the Court of Claims, and they brought an injunction, preliminary injunction, to stop the state from enforcing their rules. Some may say that is chutzpah comes to mind. What else, Jim? You think of a word that would. Anyways, well, Jamie Lowe, what's your take on this? Did I describe the scenario accurately, and how would you add to that?
Yeah, so I think we don't need to get deeply into it, but there's they have a particular history and
No, let's get into it.
Some kind of judgments that could be made about them from back in the time of running the state police labs, allowing for misinformation to lead to harsh charges and penalties for people for really following state law. Ultimately, we know that a child was separated from his family for nearly 2 years over it. A corrections officer in Grand Rapids area committed suicide. And these guys transitioned into having one of the commercial labs. That's separate from all of this, but I mean, just to point out that they're not necessarily above nefarious behavior, and it's a good reason not to use them even before any of this stuff happened. But they're subject to that recall, a massive recall. I think you just said $230 million or something like that. This was mainly around the microbial stuff, and there's other issues, and there's an ongoing investigation. And they said during these most recent hearings that it included why the THC numbers were larger consistently.
They addressed that? Is that what you just said?
They said that it was part of the ongoing investigation.
Oh.
I mean, everybody kind of knew it, I think, but they, stated it today on record. So Veritas ultimately doesn't believe that the proper mechanisms are in place, that the MRA has proper authority to do things like this in this way to this magnitude. And they filed a complaint against the state, and we heard the hearings last couple of days.
All right, so here, should we talk about Mashad a little bit? Because he's spoken about in great detail in this Leafly story that discusses that case. It's Leafly's investigation, The Great Cannabis Crime Lab Frame-Up by Bruce Barcott. And this is published, I don't remember when it's published. But those are the great details. The 22-page story. Leafly does a great job. I was the lawyer, so I know all about this, but I want to highlight a couple things here in this 22-page story. And what I'm talking about here is the same person who I'm about to speak of here, Gregory Michaud. If you question, let me even back up more. Looking from 30,000 feet, this lab, Verity's lab, was accused of failing tests or not passing tests that should have failed, recalling all this material for the concerns of it having spirogilla. What is
Aspergillus.
this? Aspergillus. And what's the other one? This, I don't know, Salmonella, they were, whatever. So, but there's a ton of it, right? So the response, of course, by the lab was, this is impossible. We, Verities, led by Michaud and Michelle Glenn, who testified and is also a former police officer that worked at the lab, not us. We lead the state in the nation and, credibility and integrity and blah, 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 was his response. And what they did essentially is they refused to accept any criticism from the Marijuana Regulatory Agency and sued them to say, you don't even know what you're talking about. We're the police. We're the cop lab now. You can't touch us. You can't complain about us. And we're going to try to enjoin you for all these various reasons. All right, so Jamie's point was that this whole position that they're taking, that they have this, reputation that's impeccable, that they have played by the books and never swayed off the path of integrity and science and honor, and then you don't know the whole story. For them to even say that, they come to the table. Their best arguments that they're making, you can't touch us. We're the honorable former police forensic science division that are doing this. We've got integrity. Can't say that because this whole thing reflects the dirty hands by which they come to the table. So Michaud's email directed lab staff to consult with Ken Stecker, a lobbyist for the state's prosecutors, who would rule on the cannabis policy. So what happened? According to them, it had to do with the law the state legislature passed in 2012 concerned about the spread of K2 spice and other drugs contain synthetic THC. This is nonsense. This whole story that they fabricated was a joke because the discussion arose out of a case called Carruthers. Carruthers was about usable and not usable marijuana. It had nothing to do with non-marijuana. Anyways, so the lab quietly instituted a new policy. If no actionable cannabis leaf was present, the lab analysts were told to record the drug as THC, origin unknown. That clarification allowed prosecutors to charge medical marijuana patients with felony possession of synthetic THC.
Boom.
Though it represented a radical change in the law, few outside the lab were aware of the policy. The public was never informed. State legislators were never made informed. Inside the lab, some balked at the change. And in the May 2013 email that we had uncovered, an analyst by the name of Scott Pennebaker, who worked for the lab in Northville, told colleagues that he found it highly doubtful that any of these medical marijuana products we are seeing have THC that was synthesized. This would be completely impractical.
No shit.
We are most likely to see naturally occurring THC extracted from the plant. And he goes on to write, you now jump from a misdemeanor to felony charge. And in July,
because they say we don't know if this came from the plant or not, so we're gonna have to charge you for a felony just in case.
Yeah.
It seems like you should defer to, since we don't really know, we're not gonna put you through the
First of all, the idea that the lab report is supposed to identify for this reason alone, what is the purpose of the lab? Well, they receive a substance without any predetermination. They're supposed to have a method of analyzing it. And they're supposed to be able to identify it from their analysis of what kind of substance it is. And they have to know if that substance is a controlled substance or not. And if it is, they should report it as such. The idea that they concluded that a policy resulted in we're not sure what it is, And that somehow satisfies their job, which is to identify, not know and report it. They should just say, we don't know. Mm-hmm. But the idea that it gives them the opportunity to charge them. So you understand that it's the equivalent was like, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the defendant's charged with the crime of possession of heroin. Now, the lab report says it could be heroin, it could be cocaine. Can you find the person guilty of possession of heroin? Of course not. They can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt because it might be cocaine. You see what I'm saying? Like, they have to prove the substance is what they say it is. It's insane. So here you go. 2013, Captain Greg Mouchot, director of the Michigan State Police Forensic Science Division, received a memo from a well-known cannabis prohibitionist named Ken Stecker. Stecker's email claimed that edibles made with cannabis extracts did not qualify as usable marijuana under the medical marijuana. This email pertained to another case, but it laid the legal groundwork for the prosecution against our client, Max Lorenz. And, I mean, his comment was actually... Anyways, the point is he should be talking to Ken Stecker. Ken Stecker's not a scientist. You don't change science. You don't change science because of a desired outcome. Here. Hey, so I mean, yeah. So, and I would say this: how could this happen? That's a real problem. We ended up suing the state lab to try to enjoin them. Speaking of, preliminary injunctions, we did that with them, and they ultimately changed the policy. But the real issue, I think, that remains to this day with the Michigan State Forensic Science Division, as well as what's taking place with the MRA and Verities, is the conflict of interest that inherently exists. If you're going to have a lab, you want it to be independent. If you're going to have a lab, you want it to be scientists, not influenced by, and you want them to retain their integrity and the principles associated with science, which is close to a with some measured uncertainty, as close to the truth as you can, and there should be consistency, precision, repetitiveness of the results over and over again, and not influenced by, we work for the police, we're the lab for the police, and we're going to just do whatever we can to get a conviction, and that's the way it's always been. They don't really retain any independence. But likewise, returning to the MRA battle with this lab, it's interesting because they were maintaining that they were not even qualified enough. That is, Verities was claiming the MRA is not qualified enough to judge them. But we heard over this evidentiary hearing, Jamie, please pipe in here if you would. And let's see what Danielle's got, any commentary on this. But is there, the first witness was, Michelle Glynn, that testified for a couple of days. And then today we had one of the analysts, more of a scientist that works for the MRA. What was your takeaway? What were your thoughts on what the judge was cueing in on and not cueing in on, if you can?
Well, I mean, the judge, I think, is trying to make it clear to the Veritas lawyers as they kept on going down a lot of different roads, I think, to try to establish that some of the individuals had motivations, that their processes were flawed, that they didn't really have any good, great thing in place or whatever. But he's really, in part, just trying to determine or confirm that this is the correct agency that has the governing control over this situation. And Veritas is trying to say that maybe they shouldn't have that authority, that they're overstepping their bounds and they're not qualified to do this. But I think that the judge isn't interested in taking that particular evaluation, that deeply. So, but there was some interesting concerns raised by the lack of there being any kind of a procedure or process in place to know where the parameters are with something like this. Mainly because of the magnitude of this, which was pointed out by Veritas, quite often. But the today's witness, that was the head of the science. I'm not sure what the committee or whatever the sub science scenario is inside the MRA is I think did a really good job of trying to explain a little bit more about how the uncertainty came about, and there were weird readings. They didn't have logs to demonstrate some things or records of some things that they wanted to check on to make sure the procedures were done correctly, and there are some other things, and that in totality they developed an uncertainty for the current results for those tests. And of course, the Veritas lawyers are trying to break down each one of those components and demonstrate how they were not strong enough to equal such a massive recall. So it's interesting. The judge said he might have his decision by the end of the day, but I don't think that happened. So probably tomorrow.
Is it, was there any discussion about another lab joining that lawsuit by chance that you know of? ACT Labs?
No, I mean, ACT and many other labs and probably retail stores and cultivators are all deciding in one way or another if there's something going on with the state and or Veritas Labs.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I think ACT like I don't know for sure if they're involved in anything, but a lot of those have all those. I mean, maybe Michael knows better than me, but all those places at least have something to look at who are involved in this, potentially, depending on how much they lost or whatever happened as a result.
Yeah.
But I'm sure. I mean, maybe again, Michael probably he's learning something that he's going to regurgitate here in a minute, apparently, but. I think this complaint in large part had to do with trying to, support a lot of what they're trying to say to their customers. They really didn't do this, and that they're trying to get a stay, they're trying to get an injunction, and in Michael Machad's testimony, he said that if they don't get this injunction, they'll probably just have to fail.
What do you mean have to fail?
But the business will have to go down because
Oh,
they can't.
well,
So he kept that, and they brought in a guy from Loom and a guy from another large cultivator, and
All
they
right.
discussed, how huge all that stuff was. Okay, go ahead, Michael.
No, I was just going to say, I have a copy of the complaint that was filed and what kinds of stuff in it. But like one of the things that they defend themselves and why they're asking for the injunction to be granted is that, and they start out with this whole point that they're, they go their whole credibility thing, but they have this other motivation that they maintain 60 to 70% of the testing market. That means that the other remaining, and they suggest there's like, I don't know how many they said there's like 17, 15, other facilities that are fighting over the remaining 30% of the market. And the competitors have taken issue with their organic market shares of the cannabis test, and rather than out competing them, some of the other facilities have indicated that they want to mess with the plaintiffs, in so many words. Several competitors have openly indicated to plaintiffs and the MR during open public calls they want to see plaintiffs shut down and put them out of business. So it's everyone else's fault. It's all they're number one, and everyone's kind of gunning for them. And then they go on to say the MRA's own internal political objective for the cannabis testing market is to ensure that all marijuana safety compliance have a fair share of the testing market. In fact, during a recent webinar, Ms. Patterson indicated the MRA's political objectives to ensure that there's not too much of a market concentration in one particular lab. I mean, talk about organic. I mean, not organic. So it's interesting they have that opposition. The questions, I don't know. It's I don't believe any of it. It's nonsense. I mean, if they just brought up the 404B issue, which is it's prior bad acts and whatnot. But Jamie, what do you say about that?
I don't know, some people like their consistently higher THC testing, which may be by a valid method. That's part of the investigation, and part of the problem is that there's not a universal standard that all labs are using, which is also something that's probably going to have to be looked at, possibly by the state after something like this.
You know, they did a lot of violations, and it's been assumed they've been getting away with it for a long time.
Some people like their prices. Some people like the higher THC. I mean, they were really, really working it. Some people like the decreased failure rate, the ability to get after, you know, the second test pass after failing a first test. You know, they were accommodating all of those things. And that's, you know, that's the way to, if you can, you know, consistently handle all those things and your product keeps on making it through to market. And with a higher THC number.
Looks like
So I'm saying, like, sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
No, continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, so, you know, so I don't, you know, so some of these things might be determined to be bad methods, or some of them might be valid or whatever, but some kind of variation on that is what's been going on.
So apparently in California, what they did a couple of days ago was rolled out a, there was an article in the MJ Biz Daily.
Oh boy.
And talks about how California rolls out plans to standardize cannabis testing statewide. So basically, they got 41 labs over there, and they have identified 2 of those that will be the, you know, like their baseline testers, so to speak. So, you know, like, that's what they're working on. So I'm guessing that probably there's going to be a need for us to do something similar too, huh? Standardize something, figure out a way.
Solve some of these issues, because even if they're consistent higher THC numbers, could be by a valid method, because there isn't like a standardized way of doing it. That might not end up being a problem.
Well, it was
one of the reasons they've been enticing people into their fold, but I mean, it might not be a science problem.
I mean, here you go. They live up to the highest standards possible, but they don't keep any logs. How important are the logs? They say the logs aren't important because that's really an issue with our ISO certification.
Which is ridiculous in itself.
The idea that a non-ISO certified lab could operate is, again, what standard are they following?
It doesn't matter.
And also,
bullshit?
ISO doesn't say whether it's good or bad. They just check what you've written down, make sure that you do it the same way every time, and you have a process to catch your errors.
That's true.
Okay? They don't care if the stuff has mold on it. They're not looking for that. They're looking for you to know what you're doing. They don't know that.
State witness today said that that the expectation of keeping record of these different things like temperature or stuff like that is so basic that they assume that wasn't an issue.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not how that works. Oh my.
Well, that's unfortunate. I think it's put a bunch of patients in the picking up the
But you know what?
short end of the stick
I
again.
mean, how much of this is karma, though? I mean, the whole thing is pretty ironic.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it's really, it's probably affecting the patients quite a bit, because all that material that got recalled, stocking the shelves is going to be a little more difficult, which means the patients are going to have a hard time.
Some of the smaller businesses are going to get really hurt by it too.
Yeah.
What we heard as part of like more of an historical perspective here, how these guys were willing to skew science in order to, affect some other type of a means. And, we don't know for sure yet if that's what's going on here, but, we know that they're not above it.
Nope.
Tommy, we got to go to a break.
Yeah.
You're listening to Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
This is for those two wonderful couples that have been out here the whole time. Thank you guys very much. You're wonderful. I look forward to seeing you all next year. We are the Fox and the Fiddle. Thank you, everybody. Well, I set out after 25 years of hanging out and drinking beers. Finding a life of my own out on the road. And the way we think life ought to be, all ain't the way now. As you can see, ours seems to be a lot less love to go around. Sounding good from where you are, road away. You wanna be, keep on believing, soon you'll see it. Everything you wanted, that's how you live a dream. Fall right into your lap, it's my time since happened just like that. Never mind the things you're thinking. All you gotta do is, all you gotta do is believe. Well, I made a man now in Timbuktu, and he looked at me, told me the truth, so be thankful for this life that you've been given. The 7 times the tough and the chips so down, I remember you can turn the whole thing around, so be thankful for this life that you live on. Starting again from where you are, road away. You wanna be, won't believe I soon you'll see it. Everything you wanted, that's how you live a dream. Fall right into your life, cause the time since happened just like that. Never mind things thinking. All you gotta do is, all you gotta do is, all you gotta do is believe. Keep on believing, soon you'll see everything you ever wanted. And now that you live a dream, well, now keep on believing, soon you'll see it. Everything you wanted, that's how you live a dream. Fall right into your lap, sometimes since happened just like that. Never mind the things you think of me. All you gotta do is, all you gotta do is, all you gotta do is believe. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa. Fox and the Fiddle. Be good and kind to one another. Tell someone that you'll love them. Pick someone up when they're feeling down. Always look before you leave. Remember, most importantly, we love you. We're the Fox and the Fiddle. We'll see you next year. Miss Emily Joy. Oh, yeah. I'm Austin Scott. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Oh, yeah. We're doing it. Thanks, everybody.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective: take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
All right, back. Thanks for staying with us. Boom. Listen to Planet Green Trees. We talked a lot about the lab, and I'm ready to move on, but I didn't want to dominate. Jamie or Danielle, you didn't really get a chance. Jamie, do you got anything else to say about that? Or Danielle, jump in. Either one of you, please. I'll give you that. So then we're going to move on to some other topics.
No, being in Ohio, we have our 4 state labs that can do any testing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's 4 total. Well, it started with 2. We're up to 4. I think there's 6 or 8 on the list that are waiting for their final approval, but that may
Wow.
never come.
Okay.
That just means they've started the application process. That doesn't mean that.
There is there's a cap on it, and each one of those labs, if there's a cap, they can guarantee they're arguably going to get a certain percentage of the market. One would think of stuff, but I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic. As Jamie alluded to earlier, there are not, there, and as we talked about last week, I think on the show with Lev and Ben from PSR 2 weeks ago, there are not the standards that are used in other types of testing protocols in laboratories. The NHTSA, or the federal government, has not provided what looks like, in the GCMS or whatever method they're using, what 28% THC looks like with these kind of terpenes. They're not producing that kind of stuff. So the standards to which they're going to judge the image of of the machine that they're running through with a known or a standard, that's what they call. You know what I mean? They usually get those from other places, or they create them and make them. But if there's not consistency in the scientific community as to what these things are, what the baseline and what the bullseye is, so to speak, everything else becomes very arbitrary, But
Makes sense.
my joke is, when you're, or as an expert explained to me once in a trial we had, we were trying to determine, they report a value like 10 nanograms of THC, and they give you one result. There's not a decimal point next to it. So the question is like, if the analogy was, if you're going to be betting on a sharpshooter in a match, putting money down, and you're watching them in practice and they shoot and hit the bullseye, are you going to bet on them then? Are they going to become your, because you want them to shoot again because the second shot may be the other way. They may have missed the bullseye, but they might
just got lucky.
Right, exactly. Or whatever they shot is not the bullseye unless they can hit the bullseye over and over and over again and produce the same result. The second shot, we don't know what it is. The 10 may have been a 15, the 10 may have been a 2. The next thing, we don't know. And until they can produce that, everything else is just arbitrary. It's not science, And they should be able to predict that it's going to be within a certain bullseye. And that's the whole point. Like, if you don't have, in some of these situations, whatever, they have created some standards that they think they have for, THC in the blood, but it has not got.
There are international standards that a lot of people suggest that should be used.
Instead of the labs making their own, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
So with thinking about the what they're doing with the, do you think that it would be possible to use? Now, I guess you wouldn't have the ability to have everybody run the same equipment and stuff, right? Because everybody's got their own budgets, their own equipment. They're running it different ways.
That's a good point. I understand that when they're testing for microbials, there's different tests that they use. One of the older methods is called the plating method, where they actually grow out the mold on a plate. They can count the colonies, fungus, or whatever it is. There's a newer version, and some of the labs are using different stuff. In fact, I understand that one of the methods that was being used had not been validated. It's not a valid test, yet they were doing it anyways, which means that when somebody's not validated, amongst other things, it means that they can't show you that they are consistent in any of their testing. It's got the validations that they can produce and roll out a predictable error rate, I guess, is another way to say it. All right. So, Senate, Jamie, all right, let's talk about Senate Bill 631. Is that what we're going to do? Is this, about this thing?
What's going on with that?
Everything about it, but it decriminalizes entheogens. And it was a point of reference a lot at the Entheo Fest. It was introduced by Senator Irwin, and it's bipartisan, and I think it's has some traction in committee and stuff. So it's
So what exactly about the what exactly does that bill propose, for those that may not know?
Well, it's maybe Michael knows a little bit deeper because I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but it essentially decriminalizes like mushrooms and.
There was one part in there I read something about the cultivation, the distribution, and all that kind of stuff. That I might have been reading it wrong, but it sounded like they were allowing a path to that being a revenue stream for someone growing mushrooms or whatever else they're going to grow. Is that what you picked up?
I think that this whole process definitely is on that path. Again, I've been aware of this bill and what it generally does for a while, but I haven't, I admittedly haven't like totally read it, and I don't know the ins and outs of it.
There's some
I support it.
it's a part of the public health code. It refers to different types of substances that are and have been, contraband in the past. There's no question that it is a intention to decriminalize to a certain extent the enthogenic.
How do you pronounce that?
Enthogenic plants or fungus means. All right. So an individual. An individual is not if this passes, it says an individual is not in violation of this section if the individual manufactures, creates, delivers, or possesses with the intent to manufacture, create, or deliver an entheogenic plant or fungus without receiving money or other valuable consideration for the plant or fungus.
Among Us.
So, and they did, so they got mescalins on here, dimethyltryptamine.
DMT, little DMT.
Psilocybin. So, money or other valuable consideration does not include a reasonable fee for counseling, spiritual guidance, or related service that is provided in conjunction with the use of entheogenic plant or fungus. But there is some references in here, if I'm not mistaken. They do there are references to marijuana plants.
Mm-hmm.
What was plants? They now specify that they're plants. They also say marijuana, Catha edulis, and Salva divinorum, or sometimes described as a misdemeanor. 90 days. See,
it seemed like it didn't reference a civil infraction anywhere.
No, this is because this is the public health code. This is not the.
Okay.
This is not the.
The
MRTMA, right? So, right. Why would they be talking about or discussing marijuana plants here? And in any, I don't think they can do what they're doing in marijuana because you have a voter initiative. This would have to be passed by, 75% of it's intended to. They're not amending the act, but it's something that's indirectly amending the act. Jim, what do you think? Did you read this?
That Senate bill?
I did. And
does it have an impact on the marijuana?
No, I didn't see any.
I thought I saw something.
Oh, you know what? I did.
There's highlights in here.
But it was basically it looked
renaming
like some
marijuana?
Housekeeping stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really read it that deeply though, so it may be doing something
It
else.
sets forth the prohibitions for marijuana. A number of plants of marijuana.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's 4 years, 7 or 15. And what they did here is instead of just leaving, the a substance classified as a Schedule 4, which is not this, but they go on to say if the amount is 45 kilograms or more of 200, what used to be 200 plants or more, it now says 200 marijuana plants or more. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just that's a technical change, isn't it?
Why would they be why would they technical in the sense that they describe what kind of plants that follows a certain type of punishment that's associated with it, and they insert the word instead of plants, marijuana plants? How could that be if marijuana plants would result possession of that?
Maybe, Michael, it's because they're talking about those other plants, and they want to make sure you get the gist that it's marijuana. Do you think? Rather than like your ashwagandha plants or whatever the heck it is.
It's certainly. I mean, it definitely brings to the forefront in the statute a lot of permissive behavior for the entheogenic plants.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't do a lot. I mean, it's still the public health. They got the cocaine in there. They got the other schedules in there. Jamie, did you do you know if there was a trade here? It does have a weird element. You understood it to be just exclusively about the permitted behavior for entheogenic plants, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. So have a discussion with Senator Irwin and find out what the reference to marijuana in there could mean.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's Senate Bill 631. Is it fair to say that, what was the other one? 36301? No, what is it? That was the one we just, what was the bill?
631.
No, the ones that they were, the MR.
Oh.
5330.
Those are done, right? We don't have to worry
What's
about
up with those? Those are killed.
I don't know why we think that they're done. No, I mean,
They're still there.
There's not votes for them now. They just recently introduced another bill to tie bar to that set of bills, and Steve Linder is still lobbying people and stuff. So
Wow.
they're not done.
It should be. This whole scandal with their stupid fucking testing shit is bullshit. I don't know how to say it any other way. I was kidding. So, I don't know. We want to talk about this felony case in Michigan, or you want to talk about this drunk driving prosecutor? Felony case in Michigan. Let's talk about that. I mean, I'm aware that there are existing marijuana cases in Michigan because I still have a couple that remain here, and it's insane. But what's this case? Yeah, here we go. Who is it? Maryland? Delucenay will face felony charges, possession with intent to deliver marijuana after a state inspection of her medical marijuana caregiver operation. I don't even know that found more than 261 plants.
What the hell is a state inspection?
There's no such thing as that. Right. That's the problem.
There is now. Guess who's wrong? Just kidding.
Well, what do we got here? So, Brent Weigel, the judge, bound over. Daniel Day Lewis, the Michigan State Police detective, no, his real name is Daniel Lewis, went to the home, received information that a flower company, Smoking Day Lilies in Branch County, was basically a storefront for sales of marijuana, specifically. Delucenay maintained the website. The veteran trooper said his assignment is to inspect all businesses that sell tobacco products. We also do inspection at all licensed facilities that either grow, process, or test marijuana. Marijuana patient herself, a caregiver for a maximum of 5 others, she's allowed to have a grow operation. Lewis asked to see it. The trooper said he was taken to the garage. It was a large platform. It contained several hundreds of individual. Unbelievable. Told the trooper that they had harvested 6 weeks earlier. Said she would have been allowed 70 plants on the act. Also looking at the base, 5-gallon buckets, 33-gallon totes of marijuana shake leaves, stems of the plant. Trooper said that they were surprised to learn that over 200 plants. She said there were more. She said there were more than the 70 she allowed. Anyways, Josh Covert's representing him. Marijuana. Okay, so argues that a new definition of marijuana that went into effect should apply. Marijuana is defined by THC delta 9 concentrations. The marijuana has had to at least 3% delta 9 THC concentration to be marijuana or its industry hemp. Yeah, that's a good argument because if they're all clones and non-flowering plants, and they can't be, right?
Yeah. Very true.
They field tested marijuana and had not done a chemical analysis under the new law. Weigel ruled, I know him, that the can be applied only going forward and did not apply to the June. Cover also argued that the civil manufacturer is a large quantity. On Michigan laws is a misdemeanor. Michigan voters, I've argued this before. No love. I know this about this. Well, for the totality of circumstances, okay, circuit court considered an appeal and some pictures of Weigel, the cop. All right, commentary. This is still going on. What do we think? Is this the norm? Jamie?
What are your thoughts on this lawsuit about
it's a criminal case.
The older lady that's getting in trouble for having 200
Branch County. It's a bad place.
After a state inspection.
Yeah, state caregiver inspection.
100 cannabis plants. it would suck if he gets into serious trouble over it.
There wasn't. There were some babies, some clones. Can't be a felony.
I don't care if they were fully mature and each had 3 pounds on them. You shouldn't get into any trouble for
The
it.
incident. Wait, did the incident occur before? I mean, how do they charge with a felony?
I don't know because was it habitual?
I don't know.
Was it willful?
Yeah, there was she. Did they bust her selling it to people or something?
Was it for a commercial
No,
purpose?
is it over? Was it
She
overgrow?
said it was for her patients.
Is it
right?
overgrown? She had too many plants. They went to her house. They inspected. I don't know how they get the felony. He's arguing that it's not even marijuana. He said
What county or what?
Branch County. They
Probably hemp.
I would
Just
say
a
it's
little
hemp.
It doesn't
Just a
even
little
matter if
bit
it
of
is
hemp.
marijuana.
Just
They can't
some
charge
hemp.
you with a felony now, can they?
Not unless it's
Well-
habitual, willful, and for commercial purpose.
Right.
Or involves
And
violence.
they might just say that, but I think it's a lot of hemp plants, if you ask me. So
That's what I would say.
Josh argued that, and they said it doesn't matter, but it does matter because
He argued that it was
hemp
hemp.
is fully legal, right?
It doesn't even have to. The new law doesn't even matter. The old law was in effect before they fucking made the new law. Hemp's always been hemp, of course.
It's
Silly.
Rooney Dooney.
Federally.
What is Danielle still here?
Yep.
Danielle, what's the story? Are you hearing about any criminal interdictions with the police and patients or caregivers? Or, I know there's no caregivers, right? Because there's, but you got
There are, but they can't grow. They just get the
Right,
medicine
okay.
on their behalf.
Caregivers can just pick up on behalf of patients.
All right. So is there a lot of interdiction, like where the people are violating the rules to the extent where police are making a thing of it?
Not to be loud enough that I would hear about it
Right.
or anything like that. I remember when I was working in the dispensary, the patients that had the most interactions with police or any type of criminal justice side of things, they were already in trouble, and it was just proving patient status.
Mhm.
Okay.
But outside of that, I haven't heard too much of an issue.
Right, because they got some controls on the acquisition of it, and
I think probably the biggest issue that happens between Michigan and Ohio would be the transport of the medicine
Crossing
from one
state
state
lines.
to another. That's probably where they're getting in the most trouble in Ohio, is bringing it back. Well, because Ohio, you guys can't get as much. What's your limit? What?
They actually just increased the limit.
Did they?
There used to be a 2-tier system, so anything over a certain percentage of THC would be tier 2 versus tier 1, and that would count against your day supply. It used to be you could buy up to 8 ounces within a 90-day period, and they just bumped that up to 9.
Oh, that's not bad, actually. That's a pretty decent amount.
but it could be low THC levels. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And there's you can only buy up to a 90-day supply at a time. And that's actually, I think they even break it out even further now to 45-day increments. But so 2.83 is the Ohio 10th. Instead of it being 3.5, they count it as 2.83. So each one of those counts as a 2-day supply against that 45 or 90-day requirement. So it's just a numbers game. You have to plan your purchases wisely to get the best bang for your buck. But
Let me ask you this. Do you think that there's a scandal that's going on in the Ohio testing system and you don't even know about it yet?
oh, I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff going on that I don't know about. Our system is I will say it's extremely strict. Like that's kind of the downfall of it, with the Board of Pharmacy having the control that they have over the program as they do right now.
Okay.
A lot of companies are too afraid to do things, but I think where I'm sure there's scandal somewhere.
What about, do you think they're inflating the THC? That's the thing that happens from state to state. You know, the reporting of THC, even though I think everyone here agrees is not a reason to buy cannabis. There's so many other
Right. There's so many
other
important
things to
factors.
measure, right? But you know, but on the market, maybe not in medical so much, maybe medical still, but you know, it remains as being the driving force. It's like someone comes with a nickel and they give it quarter evaluation, and they go out and trade their quarter for. That's the impact that it has, right? But are they reporting that higher? Do you think it's? I don't know. I mean, is it?
Do you think they're messing around with the test results?
I don't think they're messing around with the test results as much as I think there's a push for growers to be producing the higher level, the higher content levels. I don't think that it's so much scandal at the testing level as it is like the competitiveness of the growers finding the right seeds, finding the right genetics to bring in. But I don't think there's any kind of falsification going on.
Is it quality cannabis that you could say, can compete with Michigan's cannabis or other cannabis that you may have seen that existed before
Good question.
the program?
I would consider the quality of flower in Ohio on par, if not, I'm not even trying to start a war, but I will say, like, from my personal experience with Michigan flower versus Ohio flower, I've found the quality to be better in Ohio, but I think that's because they're all coming from money-backed professional growers. Like these are companies that have produced these flowers. They're not coming from caregivers or solo grows or anything like that. So from that side, I would say that the flower is better. I think that our edible game certainly has some room to grow, but we're getting there.
Do you think they're remediating?
What do you mean by that?
Like if something tests hot, like for mold or contaminants.
Places here are remediating before it even goes to testing for the first time.
So that means, Danielle, they're blasting the flower to make it past testing.
Ionize it,
wouldn't
or radiate
blast it with ionize.
Radiate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to throw any speculations out there. I haven't come across any places or any type of product that I would feel that way. Nor have I heard any stories of that, but I can't say that it's not happening.
Well, they don't acknowledge that to the consumer. In other words, like I understand that Canada does this with all of its fruits and vegetables, so to ensure that there's no bacteria or any kind of, that's how they ensure it. But nobody knows what the impact is of this irradiation technique, which is equivalent to like a microwave or some kind of light, have high, heavy, powerful light treatments or whatnot to kill any microbials that would be existing, like the organic matter, in other words, okay? So nobody knows what the response to that is, and some people argue that they may not know that it happened to the plant, and maybe it should be disclosed beforehand. And it's another way where that, everyone's told that it's passing some level of testing, but they're not telling you that in order to pass the testing, they're growing it with these microbials and then trying to kill them off so that they pass testing and whatnot. Now, that may be the readily accepted method that consumers expect, but it's not, I don't think it's really full-on transparency. The idea is that they're growing in an indoor facility and it's, they're passing testing right out of the gate. That's not usually the situation. They're usually, as the lab testing, as this lab scandal's been going on, Jamie, isn't that one of the things that was resonating throughout this, that these labs are failing a lot of it and sending it back for remediation and then retesting, right?
So as far as the whole scandal thing going on, one of the things that they found to be weird was that it would fail one place, and then it would go to Viridis and then pass, and there wasn't remediation. It didn't get put through one of those processes first, and that became kind of a red flag.
Right, but I would say that the point I was making is that this was happening a lot, where if someone would fail, they would either remediate. But you know what I'm saying? It's like the original plant has got to be, I don't know, it's got to be manipulated to pass the testing. That's all I'm saying. Danielle, does that bother you? I mean, you may not have enough information to.
But if it gets remediated before it goes testing for the first time, you never know about it. Nobody ever knows about it.
Right. If they just do it as a matter of course all the time also. But we don't know if that's good or bad.
There's no way they can, there's no way that a lab can tell by looking at the bud structure and all of that it's been remediated?
My question is, what is the point of them doing that? Like, wouldn't eventually patients catch on or consumers catch on that
Well, we have.
if
That's
you're
the
saying
problem.
that you're testing a 32% and you're not at all getting that type of effect, that
that's
level of effect?
that's something different, which we can talk about in a second. I'm still with this thing about this irradiation or remediation where they don't so the idea. So what I'm saying is, I just think it's kind of hiding the ball a little bit. Here's my final point. We move on to the inflated THC, but you get a stamp on the package you buy at a store that says, state tested it and it's passed all the measures. Well, now we know for the last 3 months, this one lab has not been accurate in that regard, so they recall the marijuana. But beyond that, it's suggesting that they've, when you do buy it, it's suggesting that it's met a certain standard and it's passed the test. But in order to get to that passing level, it may have gone through some very aggressive treatments that we don't know what impact it has on the overall, consumption.
To clean out anything that they say they're not using. Is that
it's mold? Mold. So
you've got what do you call them?
You got your bacteria in your molds, your mold.
Fungus and mold.
Yeah.
What they're called microbials. That's what it is. Yeah. So there's certain levels of the microbials that when they test them, and everyone's got different protocols and procedures, even though there should be a standard. But if they exist, or what would be described as organic material, right? Because in fact, some caregivers say, they grow in organic soil and it's got organic material in it, maybe picked up as fungus or bacteria. A lot of them, I don't know. But the point is this: instead of because if that organic material is tested in the plant, it'll fail because it's perceived as being potential fungus or whatever. This is what I understand. So what they'll do instead is they'll put it in a microwave, run it for a minute and kill all the bacteria, fungus, all of it.
So they flash it, they sanitize it in essence.
They irradiate it.
Yeah.
Which is a heavy light treatment.
And what that does, yes, and then what that does is theoretically kill some of the terps and the other.
Yeah, see, that's where it would bother me. It's taking stuff away from, but as long as they're not claiming that all of that whatever, if they're not making false claims to patients, I guess
they're just not making any claims about
it.
Here's the thing. If you were buying milk that's FDA approved, because you can't buy it, they got rules on, buying it.
You can't get it right from the cow.
Right. So if they're FDA approving it and you find out that all the milk that the FDA is approving came in as not ready for human consumption and they manipulated it so that it was, would you be okay with that?
That's a very good analogy. Yeah.
That'd be a problem.
Yeah.
Because or should they at least tell you? And it may be a legitimate program. You don't know, And
if they can prove the science and show that there's no detrimental effects, then that's one thing. But you can't just roll it out to the market and blindside customers when they find out and be like, "Oh yeah, well it's fine."
Jamie, there very well may be absolutely nothing to what this procedure is and whether it has an impact on the plant, causes health or whatever. I don't know, but I'm just saying there is a certain amount of kind of hiding the ball. And you heard I was making the point during the testimony that. A lot of the discussion with, Michelle Glenn and the other one was about, all the material they're getting is being remediated. And I don't think that's part of the understanding of the consumer. It's something that occurs between the growers and the lab and the growers and the processors. But beyond that, the consumer retailers, they don't really care, and it's not disclosed. And it may be of no consequence, but it is, kind of under the carpet. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about wanting to get notice if it's been remediated and to determine whether or not somebody's remediating before it goes to testing for the first time. A lot of people want to know that. Just like Danielle is saying, I would want to know that.
Right.
That's been a pretty big discussion lately.
Good. I think it should be listed on the label in some kind of way, even if it's just a letter R in front of the barcode.
In Ohio, we get slips every single purchase. The dispensary gives me this double-sided sheet with all of the cultivators, whatever products, if like any pesticides or treatments,
Oh.
or they're basically essentially lining out their process of where their product came from. So I don't know that there's room in Ohio for this I hope there's not. I would want to know. I want to know that I'm buying from ethically.
Yeah, you know what I
owned
fear
companies.
is that a lot of these big companies, like that is the trend, and that's the way that cannabis is going, and it's evolving into this whole big old multi-state operator organization and stuff like that. All these national brands and whatnot. You know, I would venture to say that the majority of those major cultivation facilities are remediating. Because the bigger your the bigger your operation, the harder it is to maintain and control that room. I mean, it used to be when smaller people would be able to control it and not have to remediate it. But the way that things are now, I believe that most people are remediating, unfortunately.
You know, Daniel, I don't know if there's always been the argument that when the regulators for Ohio, for Michigan, sit down and start setting forth levels of certain substances or certain chemicals or other organic material, non-organic material that would be in the cannabis plant, it is based upon a completely arbitrary premise. Like there's not been a long-standing government study or anyone for that study that can describe in this area what's healthy. Like if you have this, what does it do to rats, or what does it do to humans, or how much, like the discrepancy in Michigan, like I think you can have higher levels of mold and fungus for the recreational, but not, it's got its lower for medical. Like if that was a thing, they can't, that doesn't justify, like for patients, alcohol, 4,000 per year.
Alcohol
like
for some...
better chance of dying if you have this than that. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of arbitrariness to whatever they came up with, and there's certainly now all kinds of chemicals that aren't even listed as banned that people may use for purposes of, that could kill you. Who knows? You know what I mean?
True.
And it's, I mean, the program was, whatever state did it before, California, Washington State, whatever, they were the ones kind of rolled it over. But it's not like, I would say for probably any other area of what a testing lab would do, if they're testing soil, if they're testing paint or testing water or whatever, there's probably some EPA, scientists that can tell you, when you run this through your GCMS, this is what, plutonium looks like in soil. You know what I mean? And here's the standard of plutonium, and they'll, be able to put it in their machine and bam, you've got plutonium and it's right there. That kind of stuff doesn't exist yet. And I think when all these other states are trying to pull it together and decide what is the standard of health or not, they're shooting from the hip. But so it begs the question of like this whole thing with the lab is kind of a joke in a way, because they're saying like they're saying we're a lab, we're really credentialed, but there's no real standard, so we're setting the standard. So screw you kind of stuff.
It's good enough.
But all right, what about the inflated? Anyways, if you respond to that, Danielle, I didn't really ask a question there. I'm sorry, but if you had any comments or at least talk about the inflated THC issue, which is also running rampant in the various states that have now legalized marijuana. And if you think that's something that is going to happen, if you think that's happening in Ohio right now.
I mean, I think I have a hard time judging one way or the other. I don't think THC is the only thing. I've said it on the show before, and I say it all the time. I don't think THC is the only thing we need to rely on as far as judging effects or judging a product. But I will say that to think that you just made the comment that for rec purchases, they're not as strict on
Right.
like the metals and the pesticides that are listed inside. Like, wouldn't that be the one part of it that you are strict on across the board, regardless of which side it's getting?
Well, no, the
Like,
microbial levels are different, but they still.
But why is that
Or-
different from rec to medical versus?
A lot of people thought that the medical was overly restrictive and made something more reasonable with the other standards.
Right, because at the end of the day, they still have to pass the testing. And some of this is organic material that's naturally in there.
Cheaper to test rec samples.
Yeah, and also, there's the old saying that, like, no one's ever died from, smoking marijuana. But, which...
But depending on what's on it.
What's that?
Talking to a few of these different labs and stuff like that, it's like at least in the context of this controversy or this scandal that's going on, the metals, the pesticide levels, a lot of the really important contaminants, let's say, are like that's straightforward stuff. There's not much deviation in being able to understand to see if they're there or not. That's not like really a big issue in this whole discussion. They do screen for those things.
But there are other chemicals that would find themselves into the plant's, infrastructure, where you could say that aren't identified in the list. Just like they came up with Delta 8 and 10 all of a sudden. I'm saying it's a new thing that's on the market. There's going to be new.
It's going to keep evolving, though, because as scientists are able to study the plant more, they're finding more and more. They're able to hone in on the individual compounds of it. So I think as scientists learn more and more about what each of these cannabinoids do, we're going to see ways that people can monetize it. And
Danielle has a couple of training modules that talk about the terpenes and the cannabinoids and stuff like that. In fact, we were just on a chat yesterday, I think. And so
next week's episode.
Yeah. So she's putting out some episodes that talk about these types of things for anybody that's looking to learn more information at a basic baseline level. And, it's good information.
Or if they just want to color up and challenge her with what she's declared as the the cannabis, the Ohio, Michigan cannabis war now that she started.
Especially partake in any testing, in any trials they want to go through at me, but
that's fine.
But you don't want any banter between the Buckeyes and the.
I was going to say it's not a good week to pick on. Michigan's in a holier than thou position than they've ever been. Yes.
I will let Michigan have this win. They deserve
basking.
They outplayed us. They definitely outplayed us. And I mean, once every 10 years, it's not that bad, right?
Very good.
Oh boy.
There you go.
It was a good game. It was a good game, but we got outplayed.
Yeah.
We made a lot of mistakes.
Such is life. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
It shows great. It shows phenomenal.
I hope Michigan fans enjoy the win. They deserve it.
They do.
Good sportsmanship. No, it is. That's good.
Absolutely. I feel like Toledo experiences the border battle a little bit different than everywhere else in the two states. But I love this weekend. I love that game. It's always fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Half my family's Michigan fans, half my family's Ohio State fans.
Oh,
so it's a nice.
That's an interesting gathering then.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
We always have the text threads going back and forth. But as far as products go, I love Michigan. I've never had a bad experience with my Michigan products. I've, knock on wood, won't have any bad experience with my products from there. But I think Ohio's got good stuff out there. It's just that they have to play all of these cultivators have to play the game. It was very expensive for them to get up and running. We're 3 years in now, and it's gotten a lot better. Yeah.
Still pretty. It just seems like it's been going for longer than that. 3 years.
Our first dispensary opened January 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going into 3 years.
Hmm.
It's crazy. So it's still brand new. I think that there's a lot of room for growth and improvement, but I think it's come pretty far.
Awesome.
Allie's from Toledo. We were making fun of her because we were, preparing for some case or whatever, and there was records, medical records that we were looking at, and she referred to them as being from Michigan Hospital, as opposed to the University of Michigan, which everyone in Michigan would say. It was like such a Ohio thing. Like she didn't know the value of saying U of M Hospital. Michigan Hospital is like, what I mean? But it was like a Toledo thing. I told her.
We'll have to get you and Allie to meet. She's one of the attorneys out of Michael's office over here. She's awesome.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, you can take the girl out of Toledo, but not the Toledo.
No,
I'm
so
just
we're
kidding.
gonna have
She's
Buckeyes
she's down
there.
there, right? Exactly. Well, yes. It's all good. All right, so we haven't have enough. I don't know. It was
fun.
Okay, good. I think that's good. Thank you for joining us, Danielle. I appreciate your input and
Absolutely.
stuff.
Thanks
And
for having me. We'll have to get you on our show. On
Yeah,
Conversation.
I keep telling
I like
him.
that.
I'll
like
work
that.
with Steven.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. You know, Jamie Lowe, he's a good guest. He does nothing but podcasts. I think he's like
Yeah, I know. He's like the
9 days.
podcast running strong over there. He's got like 20 he does every week. I can't even keep up with
We
what
need
you're
to
doing,
chat.
Jamie. You're all over the place.
Amanda, let's get him on. Let's chat.
Yep.
Okay. I'll reach out and we'll get some scheduled time, Jamie, if you're into it.
Nice. I do.
Anyone else that wants to book Jamie Lowell for their podcast, you can call Komorn Law. I'm agents for Jamie. I can book that for you, okay?
Yeah, it just takes a small commission.
He also would be doing some podcast lessons if you want to get taught how to do your own podcast.
And he might even teach you how to strum a few on the guitar. On the guitar.
There you go.
Jack of all trades.
Yeehaw. Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty well-rounded. That's why he's responsible for everything.
No pressure.
Well, thanks again, Danielle.
Yeah,
Always
thank you
nice
for
to
having
talk
me,
to
guys.
you, Jamie.
It's always fun.
All right, guys. We'll have everyone have a safe week, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening, and have a great night. We'll talk to you.
Peace out.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective. Take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. KomornLaw.com.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.